All right, so have you ever had one of those game nights? Like, you think it's going to be, chill, a couple friends, maybe some snacks.
Oh, yeah.
And then someone pulls out a game
Oh, absolutely.
with a rule book, I swear, like longer than War and Peace.
Yeah, it's like you need a PhD to understand the first cage.
You're like 3 hours in, still setting up.
Just to figure out how to move your little meeple 3 spaces.
Totally. And by that point, you've forgotten why you even wanted to play games in the first place.
Right. Well, today, thankfully, no PhD required.
Not at all.
We are diving into a game that promises some serious strategic depth. You know, those brain-burning decisions.
Right.
But without the headache of a monstrous rulebook. At least not initially.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually.
It's all about Maharaja, folks.
Maharaja.
So, to kick things off, give us the lowdown. What's the Maharaja experience all about?
Maharaja, the brainchild of Kramer and Kiesling, is all about transporting you to ancient India. You're not just playing a game, you're stepping into the role of a powerful priest.
A powerful priest devoted to one of 4 major deities. And it's this spiritual showdown. But instead of, lightning bolts and divine pronouncements, it's a battle of influence measured in, well, shrines and statues.
Okay, so like a holy construction project.
Basically, yeah. You're spreading the influence of your god by building these religious structures across the kingdom. But here's the twist. Each round, the Maharaja, the big boss, the king of India, he visits a different city.
Okay.
And showers his royal favor, victory points as we gamers call them, on whoever has the most impressive, godly representation in that city.
So it's like, got to keep up with the Maharaja's entourage and make sure your god's the most popular wherever he goes.
Precisely. You're constantly balancing, like, do I spread my influence everywhere, or do I focus on where the Maharaja is heading next?
So it's not just about building a lot, it's about building strategically, right?
Absolutely. And that's where the fun and the mind games really come in. Because you're not just openly declaring, hey, I'm building here. It's all done in secret.
The secret strategy?
Before each round, you're secretly choosing 2 actions you want to take, using this goal action disc, and then boom, everyone reveals at the same time. So you might think you're being all clever, building up one city while secretly eyeing another, but your opponents could be doing the same thing.
So it's a recipe for some serious surprises and maybe a little bit of healthy frustration when your plans get, divinely disrupted.
Exactly. It's that moment of reveal that makes Maharaja so unique.
And thankfully, speaking of avoiding frustration, this divine showdown isn't going to last for, like, an eternity, right?
Nope. The game wraps up after 7 rounds, marking the end of the Maharaja's grand tour. Unless, of course, someone manages to build their 7th statue before then, they become the instant winner.
Instant winner. So, 2 paths to victory. Either rack up the most points from pleasing the Maharaja, or become the ultimate builder, the 7-statue champion. I dig it.
Now, I know the rulebook can be a little intimidating at first glance.
Yeah.
It does warn you that this is, a game with some meat on its bones. But that's what we're here for, right? To break it down, make it digestible, show you how the strategic sausage is made, so to speak.
So to speak. And there are even some, like, advanced variations in the full rules for those who really want to, like, level up their deity game, right?
Absolutely, but we'll save those for other time. Let's start with the basics.
Basics it is. Lay it on us. What are we working with when we crack open that Maharaja box?
So first off, you have the board itself, which is like a beautiful map of this ancient Indian kingdom.
Visually pleasing.
Cities, villages, all connected. Then you've got your character tiles, each one representing a different priest.
Our priestly personas.
With their own special abilities that can really change up your strategy. And of course, those action discs are tools of secret scheming.
The secret weapons.
Yeah.
Right, and we can't forget the actual physical, religious bling we're putting down on the board. The shrines and the statues themselves.
Exactly. And to keep track of our holy progress, we have prestige point token and coins. Because even priests need some cash flow to build those impressive structures.
Ancient economics. Gotta love it. All right, so we've got this, like, treasure chest of components. What's step 1 when we're setting up the game?
Well, you unfold the board, naturally, get that kingdom laid out. Then you shuffle the character tiles, and depending on how many players you have,
2, 3, 4.
You'll put a certain number face up in the center, creating the character display. It's like the priestly lineup for the game.
The available avatars. I like it.
You've got your general supply, Prestige points, coins, action tokens all neatly arranged, and then those city flags, they get shuffled and placed randomly on the Maharaja track.
So that's how we determine the Maharaja's travel plans for the game, right?
Exactly. Each flag represents a city he's going to visit.
Okay, so the Maharaja's itinerary is set. Where does the Royal Highness himself start his journey?
He has his own starting space on the track, ready to embark on his tour. Now, each player picks a color and grabs all their matching stuff, their priest figure,
Our little dudes.
their shrines, their statues, and that all-important action disc. And everyone gets a small starting stash of coins and prestige points.
Gotta start somewhere, even in the ancient world.
Right. Now, for your first game, you can probably leave aside those special rules tiles and final scoring tiles,
Keep it simple.
just to ease into things. Each player places their priest figure and one shrine on their designated starting village on the map.
Okay, so the kingdom is set, our priests are in position, ready to spread the good word, or at least the good architecture. Now, how does a round actually play out? Walk us through it.
Each round has 5 phases. It starts with the Maharaja phase, where we determine which city the Maharaja is, let's say, gracing with his presence that round. Now, he doesn't actually move on the board yet.
It's more like the spotlight is on that city.
Exactly. The first city flag on the left of the track, that's the active city for the round. And then each following round, we shift the active flag one space to the right, so you know where the Maharaja is heading next.
So you can plan accordingly. It's like a sneak peek at the royal schedule.
Precisely. Create some interesting strategic possibilities.
Definitely. Okay, we know where the Maharaja's attention is. What's next?
Now comes the planning phase. This is where things get really interesting and maybe a little nerve-wracking. Every player secretly chooses 2 actions. They want to take that round.
2 actions, we've got options.
Lots of options. You set those arrows on your action disc to point to your chosen actions, keeping it all hidden from your opponents.
So it's like a simultaneous mind meld, everyone plotting their moves in secret.
Yeah, and then when everyone's ready, we all reveal our action discs at the same time. That's the moment of truth right there.
The big reveal, and this is where I imagine some plans go smoothly and some maybe not so much.
Oh, absolutely. You might think you've got this brilliant strategy, but suddenly someone else has built in that key spot or grabbed the resource you were counting on.
Curses. Foiled again.
Exactly. Keeps you on your toes, constantly adapting.
Love it. Okay, so we've planned, we've revealed, time to put those plans into action, right? That's the action phase, I presume?
Precisely. This is where the rubber meets the road, or the priest meets the city, I guess.
The shrines hit the ground.
Exactly. Now, the order in which we take our actions, that's determined by the character tiles in that display we set up earlier.
Ah, so who gets to go first, second, and so on?
Right. The player with the lowest number on their character tile, they go first, take both their actions, then the next lowest number, and so on.
So the character you choose isn't just about their special ability, it also affects the timing of your actions within a round.
Another strategic layer to consider.
Absolutely. Okay, so break it down for us. What are these actions we can choose from? What's in our holy toolkit?
All right, so there are 9 main actions. First off, you can build 1 statue and 1 shrine. You can place them in any city or village, as long as there's an open spot, and you can pay the cost, of course.
Gotta have those coins.
Always. Or you can go the shrine-focused route and build 2 shrines. But here's the catch. At least one of them has to be in a city. Can't just be out in the boonies all the time.
City life for those shrines.
Right. And then there's the simple option. Just take 3 coins from the general supply. Sometimes you just need a little cash infusion.
Divine fundraising.
You can also restock your personal supply of shrines, take 2 from the general supply. Or, if you're feeling flush with cash and want those victory points,
Always a good feeling.
you can trade in 3 coins for 2 prestige points. Straight up exchange.
I like straightforward. Now, there's also this action called changing character, right? Tell us about that.
This is where things get really strategic. You get to put your current character tile back in the display and choose a new one. You can even pick the one you just returned, if you want.
So it's not just about getting a new power. It's about, like, changing the game state in a way.
Yeah, and messing with your opponents, maybe.
A little priestly sabotage.
You know it. Because remember, each character has a unique special ability. Some you can use a limited number of times, others are always available.
Right, and switching characters can also change the turn order.
Exactly. Your starting character, their special ability, you only get to use that 3 times the whole game. So, gotta choose those moments wisely. The other abilities, though, use them as much as you like. And here's the sneaky part about changing character. You can also move a city flag on the Maharaja track from its spot to an empty space where another flag was.
Whoa, wait, so you're not just changing your character, you're potentially messing with the whole order of characters in the display.
Yep. It's subtle, but it can have big repercussions later on because it affects who gets to act first in future rounds.
Mind games on top of mind games. Love it. All right, what are the last couple actions we can choose?
You can move a city flag on the Maharaja track up to 3 spaces further to the right. That's a powerful move because you're essentially shifting the Maharaja's focus, influencing where those juicy victory points are going to be awarded later.
Playing the long game, eh?
Exactly. And finally, there are 2 actions that give you a little discount on building. You can build 1 shrine for 1 less coin, or you can build 1 statue with a 1 coin discount. Every little bit helps when you're trying to build that religious empire.
Makes sense. Now, I remember something about action tokens. How do those work?
Ah, yes. If you get an action token, either from certain character tiles or as a reward, you get to take an extra action on your turn. So instead of just 2, you get 3 actions.
3 actions? That's a lot of divine power.
They can be a game changer.
Yeah.
But you can only use 1 action token per turn, so got to use it wisely.
Okay, so we've planned, we've acted, we've maybe even gotten a little extra action in. What happens at the end of the round?
Then it's time for the city scoring phase. This is where we see who's really winning the Maharaja's favor in that particular city. We calculate each player's worship points, WP, based on how much they've built in the city.
All right, so worship points. What are those exactly?
They represent the strength of your god's presence in the city. Statues in the central space, those are worth a whopping 3 WP each. Statues in the outer spaces, 2 WP. Every shrine inside the city gives you 1 WP.
Gotta love those shrines.
And if your priest figure is hanging out in the city, that's another 1 WP, then depending on how many WP you have compared to everyone else, you get prestige points. So the more worship points you have, the more the Maharaja smiles upon you, the more victory points you get.
Makes sense. The more you build, the more you score. And the rule book even mentions you get coins based on how well you do in the city, right?
Yeah, exactly. So even if you don't win the most prestige points, having a decent amount of worship points can still give you a nice little economic boost.
Never hurts to have a bit of extra cash. So scoring's done. Now what? What happens to wrap up the round?
That's the end of round phase. First, we check the Maharaja track. If there are any empty statue spaces, meaning cities he's already visited, we slide all the city flags down to fill those gaps.
Keep the royal tour moving.
Right. And then we slide all the reward tiles down on the reward track. So, new rewards become available next round.
Ooh, shiny new rewards. How do those work, by the way?
Well, if for some reason there weren't any reward tiles available during the city scoring, and a player had 0 WP in that city, they get a little consolation prize of 3 coins. But otherwise, the players with the most WP in the Maharaja city get to choose from those reward tiles. The number of tiles up for grabs depends on how many players there are. 2 players, it's the top 3. 3 players, top 4. 4 players, top 5.
So always an incentive to be at the top of that worship point pile. Makes sense. All right, we've covered the rounds. Let's talk about the building itself. What are the costs, and where can we actually put these shrines and statues?
Building a statue in the city where the Maharaja is currently visiting, that's a big investment. 12 coins. But in any other city, it's 10 coins. Shrines, though, they're the bargain option, only 1 coin each. When you build, you just place your statue or shrine on any empty space of the right type in the city or village. Now, each city has a central statue space. That's the prime real estate.
The penthouse suite of statues.
Basically. And then 6 outer spaces. And here's a cool thing. If you build a statue in an outer space, it immediately unlocks 2 shrine spaces right next to it inside the city walls.
A little bonus for those statue builders.
Exactly. And there's no limit to how many shrines you can build in a city, so you can really pack them in.
A shrine city.
Now, villages, those are a bit different. Each village has only 1 shrine space, and you can only have 1 of your shrines in a village at a time. No shrine monopolies allowed.
So villages are about strategically spreading your influence, not dominating a single location.
Exactly. And they're super important for your priest's movement.
Ah, yes, our little priestly travelers. How does that work?
Your priest can only move through villages where you have a shrine. You can move from city to city as much as you want and around, as long as you have a connected chain of your own shrines through those villages.
Like a holy highway system.
You got it. Now, if you want to be a rebel and move through a village where you haven't built a shrine, it's going to cost you 1 coin per village. And you got to follow the roads on the map, no off-roading for priests.
So smart shrine placement is key for efficient movement. Any exceptions to that movement cost? Like any free travel passes for our holy dudes?
There are a few. If you just build a shrine in a village where your priest is, you can move him out of there for free. And if you move through a village that has at least one shrine from each of the cities it connects to, that's also free. Plus, just moving from a village to a connected city, that's always your choice, no cost.
So you can potentially like zoom your priest across the map if you've built your shrine network well.
Absolutely.
All right, before we wrap up, any key advice for new players, something to keep in mind when they're first starting out?
Well, that first character choice, that's a big decision. Each character has a unique ability that can really shape your strategy, so choose wisely. And those first few shrine placements, those are crucial too. They set the stage for your whole game where you can move, where you can exert influence.
Build those foundations strong, both literally and figuratively. Solid advice. Now, let's have a little fun. What are some silly house rules our listeners might enjoy adding to their Maharaja games?
Ooh, house rules. I love those. We could have a divine intervention rule where at the start of each turn, you roll a die. If you get a certain number, your god grants you a bonus action.
A little divine favor.
But you have to describe it thematically, like, my god summons a magical monsoon that floods the village, blocking my opponent's priest. Or maybe a rule where if the Maharaja visits the same city twice in a row, everyone has to groan dramatically, like, come on, Maharaja, see the world.
I love that. Thematic groaning. All right, any other fun facts or like quirks from the rule book that you found interesting?
I was amused by the table that shows how many coins you get based on your WP ranking in the Maharaja city. It's very specific. First place gets this much, second place gets this much. Even if you don't get the prestige points, you still get a little reward for putting in the effort. And I thought it was interesting how the number of reward tiles each round is tied to the number of players. More players, more tiles. Makes sense.
Little details like that can really add to the game. Okay, hot take time. What's something about the strategy of Maharaja that might not be obvious to new players?
I'd say it's the importance of timing your character changes. It's tempting to just switch when your current ability runs out, but sometimes it's even more strategic to switch to disrupt your opponents or to grab a character whose ability counters what your opponents are doing.
So it's not just about getting a new power, it's about using that change to mess with the flow of the game itself.
Exactly.
Brilliant. So, as our deep dive into the world of Maharaja comes to an end, how would you rate the game overall? Fun factor, strategic depth, all that good stuff.
For me, Maharaja hits a sweet spot. It's got that strategic complexity, the hidden actions, the building, the movement, the character abilities, all while keeping the theme front and center. It's a brain burner, but in a fun way.
Good kind of brain burn.
Once you get past the initial rulebook hurdle, the game flows really well. I'd give it high marks for both engagement and replayability. It's the kind of game that rewards careful planning, and with all the different characters and the changing Maharaja track, you can play it many times and have a different experience each time.
Agreed. Now, for our listeners who are thinking, this sounds awesome, what other games should I check out? Any recommendations?
So if you loved the area control aspect, the whole vying for influence on the map, there are plenty of games that focus on that, with different maps and different ways to dominate territory. If it was the simultaneous planning that really grabbed you, there are games that really lean into that hidden information and the tension of the reveal. And if you loved the unique character abilities, there are games where you can customize your character even more, or where each player has completely different abilities and strategies.
A whole world of strategic board games out there waiting to be explored.
It is indeed.
So after all this talk of building and strategizing and pleasing the Maharaja, it sounds like we've been essentially playing a very elaborate game of like ancient Indian real estate development.
With a divine twist.
Right, a divine twist. All right, dear listener, you've heard our deep dive into the world of Maharaja. Now it's your turn to step into those priestly sandals and see what kind of influence you can wield.
Think about those strategic choices. The balance between expansion and focusing on the Maharaja's favor. How will you time those secret reveals? How will you adapt when your opponents try to outmaneuver you?
Which character will you choose? How will you build that all-important shrine network? And how will you predict the whims of the Maharaja himself?
It's all there in Maharaja.
Until next time, folks, may your plans be cunning, your deities be pleased, and your game nights be filled with more strategic brilliance and fewer rulebook meltdowns.
Happy gaming.
Through the cities we journey far, guided by faith and the Maharaja star. Priests of wisdom, hands of stone, building statues to claim our throne. Secrets whispered in the night, planning moves before first light. Who will stand and who will rise when the king lays down his prize? Maharaja, hear our call. Statues rise, the mighty fall. Through the temples, through the land, victory lies in steady hands. Every year the winds will change, new alliances we arrange. Masters, merchants, guiding fate. Will we rise or be too late? Secrets whispered in the night, planning moves before first light. Who will stand and who will rise when the king lays down his prize? Maharaja, hear our call. Statues rise, the mighty fall. Through the temples, through the land, victory lies in steady hands. Maharaja, claim your throne. In the halls of time be known. Through devotion, through the land, history's written in our